His life cannot be compared to the life of anything in existence. His life has no beginning, his life has no end. What is the difference between life and existence? We said he exists, we said he's alive. What is the difference between the two? Life and existence. Anybody want to suggest an answer? The difference between life and existence. Is it not just repeating the same point by saying he exists and he's alive? Or are they two different attributes?
Can something exist and not be alive?
Something can exist and not have life. Something can exist and not have life. If we said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists, it doesn't automatically then mean that he has life. He has life. They're two separate qualities. You say he has wujud, he has al-haya. Two separate qualities. So we say life is an existing, and again here we make a clear distinction between the life of creation and the life of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our lives are temporary. Our lives have a beginning point and an end point. Our lives are completely dependent upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just as our existence is temporal, beginning point and end point, and completely dependent upon the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why we read in the ayah of the Quran, وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى الْحَيِّ الَّذِي لَا يَمُوتُ. وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلى الْحَيِّ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala qualifies it, الَّذِي لَا يَمُوتُ. Rely upon the one who's alive, who never dies. When he said al-hayy, rely upon al-hayy, the living or the alive, it allows a comparison to creation, because we're all alive and we can rely upon each other. But once he said alladhi la yamut, the one who never dies, it changes the whole nature of tawakkul. Like that reliance now is upon somebody who can give you something who never ends. Whereas reliance upon anyone else in existence, there's an end to that person's existence. So the reliance is deficient. Whereas the reliance of the one who didn't have a beginning, who didn't have an end, reliance upon that one is absolute and it's complete. And that necessitates the validity of all the remaining attributes. Like, what's the nature of the attributes of life? We said with irada, with power and will, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selects options, brings into being through these attributes. What does life do? Without life, none of the other attributes can function. If you have a God who's dead, who died on a cross or died any other way, we say all of the other attributes are automatically negated. Without this attribute, none of the other attributes can function. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have life, He does not have power. Does not have life, He does not have will. If He does not have life, He cannot speak, which is another attribute that will come. He cannot see, He cannot hear. All of these attributes rely upon the attribute of life in order for them to function, to operate. Textual proof, Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayy al-qayyum. God, there is no God but Him, the ever living, the ever watchful. There are those who say Ismullah al-A'zam is al-Hayy. Ismullah al-A'zam is al-Hayy. Imam Nawawi rahimahullah mentions that the greatest name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by which if you call Him, you're guaranteed acceptance of dua. Prophet mentioned that he has Ismullah al-A'zam, the supreme name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by which if you call Him, you're guaranteed acceptance. The majority, amongst them being Sayyidina Imam al-A'zam Abu Hanif rahimahullah, he mentioned that supreme name is Allah, Lafz al-Jalala. And that's the opinion of the majority. But there are those who said it's al-Hayy, al-Hayy al-Qayyum, the living and the sustainer. The rational proof. God is the creator of all things. For Him to have created anything, He Himself must be alive. In order for Him to give life, and we've already proven that God must exist in order for others to exist. Creation cannot exist spontaneously of its own accord. That necessitates a creator. We've already discussed that. In order now for everything else to have life, then the one who brought into existence must also have life. It makes no rational sense to say that He brings creation that function with a life of their own, but then the one who created Himself doesn't have life. So we say rationally, therefore, it necessitates that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself must have life. Because it is irrational to posit that creation has life while the Creator does not. That's a relatively straightforward one. The next one, 4, knowledge. Any questions on that? I was said, is there any questions on that, on the attributes of life of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So, knowledge, ilmullah ta'ala, the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is an existing eternal attribute that resides, again repeat, existing, it's there. It's not something, it's not negating something that actually exists. eternal, no beginning, no end, always the same, no beginning, no end, that resides in His essence. If you were able to glimpse into the divine essence, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created within you a capability of seeing His essence, you would see these attributes. There would actually be an attribute there that would be visible for you to see. Here, note another difference between human beings. When you look at a human being, you don't say he has an attribute called knowledge that you can see that is visible. Or power. Power is not a visible attribute within human beings. It's a quality that he possesses. With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's something that exists within the essence that would be visible because it's an affirmative attribute. So we note another distinction between divine attributes and human attributes.
Why do we... I don't know where this is. You're saying that with the attributes of Allah, they're there, there's something that exists, we can't see them, but if we were able to see them,
you'd see something then, yeah.
Where does that come from? I mean, like, you know...
That's really just to distinguish between the negative attributes and the affirmative attributes. That's really just to give us an understanding that with the negative attributes there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Whereas with the affirmative attributes, there's actually an attribute that resides within Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether we say, having said visible, that's not necessarily prerequisite. What it is that it exists within Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As opposed to negating attributes, they don't exist, there's nothing there.
But it's more than just like a description. Like you can say this person is tall or short, kind of thing.
Well, that's something that you can see.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. By which all matters are clear to him. By which all matters are clear to him. This attribute of knowledge, through the attributes of knowledge, all matters are clear to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All matters, we say all matters are in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does that mean? All matters are clear to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as they are. We must here be careful in how we say this. And we do not say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala became aware of these matters. Because some books of Aqida, they use that expression. So that's a problem now, because it indicates a beginning point to the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he always knew. He knows, he will always know. No beginning to his knowledge, no end. At no point was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ever not aware of your existence. Your existence and every single act that you do in your existence is all within the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before he created you in eternality. Before anything in existence existed, before the Prophet existed, before the qalam, the pen existed, before the lawh al-mahfuz, the preserved tablet existed, everything that will be until the very last moment is in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows is infinite. That which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, there's no limits to the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just to clarify another point as well, Lawh al-Mahfuz does not carry the complete knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Lawh al-Mahfuz, the preserved tablet, which you say is a grand creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, made from light. One of the very first creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He created a pen and instructed the pen to write everything that was, that is, and that will be until the very end. And the pen wrote, and it continued writing. And then we have a debate in Aqida, is it still writing or not? Or did it stop writing? Did it come to an end? That's something we'll discuss later on. But what does that encompass within it? It doesn't encompass within the complete knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only a glimpse into the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only an aspect of the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is contained within Lawh al-Mahfuz. When we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the pen to write everything that was, is, and will be, that's not the extent of the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No. That's not the extent of his knowledge. That's just one portion. What he knows subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have no understanding of it. We have no understanding of it. All we know is that what was recorded in Lawh al-Mahfuz is just an inkling into the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Beyond that, what's in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have no comprehension of that. Because it's infinite. So when, for example, Imam al-Busayri rahimahullah, for example, he says, وَمِنْ عُلُومِكَ عِلْمَ اللَّوْحِ وَالْقَلَمِ, when he describes the Prophet and says, from your knowledge is the knowledge of the pen and the tablet. That does not mean that he has more than the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That means he has the knowledge of Lawh al-Mahfuz. That's only an inkling into the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's only an inkling into it. It's not the infinite. Why? Because we say a created being cannot encompass completely the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Lawh al-Mahfuz was created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if somebody was to say that the Prophet knows all that's in the Lawh al-Mahfuz, what have you said? That he knows all ilm al-ghayb? You haven't said that. That's your misunderstanding, assuming that the Lawh al-Mahfuz has all the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nobody has said that, and it's impossible.